Where are you headed today?
I'm headed home, officer.
And this vehicle, who does it belong to?
It's mine.
Go ahead and step out of the vehicle.
Why should I step out? I haven't done anything wrong.
Daniel Brooks was driving his black Rolls-Royce Cullinan down the road in broad daylight. The large luxury SUV moved smoothly through traffic, quiet and powerful. Sunlight reflected off the polished body as other cars passed by. Daniel wore a plain white top, blue jeans, and simple sneakers. Nothing about his clothes showed wealth. He looked like a regular man running errands or heading home. He was not speeding, not swerving, and not breaking any law. Without warning, red and blue police lights flashed behind him. Daniel noticed the lights in his mirror and slowly let out a breath. He turned on his signal and pulled over to the side of the road. He had been stopped before for no clear reason, so he stayed calm. He rolled down his window halfway and placed both hands on the steering wheel so they could be seen clearly. His heart beat harder, but his face stayed calm. Before we go any further, if you're watching this story right now, comment where you're watching from. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, hype it up, and share it so others can hear stories like this. A white police officer stepped out of the patrol car. His name was Officer Ryan Holt. He didn't rush. He walked slowly toward the Rolls-Royce, staring at the car more than the driver. He paused near the front, then moved to the driver's side window and leaned forward slightly. "License and registration," Holt said in a hard voice. Daniel handed them over calmly. "Officer, may I ask why I was stopped?" he asked politely. Holt did not answer. He studied the documents, then looked at Daniel's face. His eyes moved from Daniel's skin to his clothes, then back to the luxury logo on the steering wheel. "Where are you heading?" Holt asked. "I'm heading home," Daniel replied. Holt nodded slowly. "And what do you do for a living?" "I work for the federal government," Daniel said. Holt gave a short laugh and shook his head. "Federal government?" he said. "And you expect me to believe this Rolls-Royce belongs to you?" "Yes, sir, it does," Daniel replied calmly. Holt crossed his arms and looked inside the vehicle again. "A man dressed like you doesn't just own a car like this. You don't deserve this kind of car." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, but he controlled it. "Officer, I bought this car legally." Holt leaned closer to the window. "These cars get stolen every day, and people like you steal them." Daniel's voice stayed firm. "Sir, I didn't steal anything." Holt stepped back suddenly. "Step out of the vehicle." Daniel took a deep breath, opened the door slowly, and stepped out into the bright sunlight. Cars passed by as drivers slowed down to watch. A few people stopped on the sidewalk. One man pulled out his phone and began recording. Daniel stood still, keeping his hands visible, saying nothing. Holt walked behind him and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. "You're under arrest for possession of a stolen vehicle," Holt said. Daniel turned his head slightly. "Officer, you are making a serious mistake." Holt ignored him and guided him toward the patrol car. The back door opened and Daniel was placed inside. The door slammed shut. Sunlight streamed through the window as Daniel stared straight ahead, silent and controlled. Outside, the black Rolls-Royce Cullinan sat on the roadside, shining under the sun, now treated like stolen property. Daniel watched through the window as officers began looking around the car. Daniel knew this stop had nothing to do with traffic. It had nothing to do with the law. It was about how he looked and what he was driving. He stayed quiet, but inside he promised himself one thing. This was not going to end the way the officer thought it would. Daniel sat in the back of the patrol car with his hands cuffed behind him. The hard plastic seat pressed against his back as the car pulled away from the roadside. Sunlight poured through the windows, making everything inside feel too bright. Daniel stared forward, breathing slowly. He had learned long ago to stay calm in moments like this, even when he was being treated unfairly. As the patrol car moved through traffic, Daniel looked out the window. People on the street went on with their day. Some stared as the police car passed. Others didn't notice at all. To them, this was just another arrest. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know how wrong this was. The patrol car finally stopped at the police station. Daniel was led out, still in handcuffs, and walked through the front entrance. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. Officers and civilians alike looked at him with curiosity, some with judgment, some with confusion. Inside, Daniel was guided to the booking area. His pockets were emptied. His phone, wallet, and keys were taken and placed in a clear plastic bag. An officer wrote his name down. Another took his fingerprints. No one asked for his side of the story. No one listened. "Sit there," an officer said, pointing to a metal bench. Daniel sat down. The bench was cold and uncomfortable. The room smelled like cleaning chemicals and old paper. A clock on the wall ticked loudly. Every second felt heavy. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Daniel's thoughts stayed focused. He knew the truth would come out, but he also knew the damage was already being done. Somewhere people were watching videos. Somewhere his name was being questioned, all because of a car and the color of his skin. A different officer walked in holding a folder. He looked at Daniel, then back at the folder again. "What did you say your job was?" the officer asked. "I work for the federal government," Daniel replied. The officer raised an eyebrow. "What agency?" Daniel paused for a brief second. "United States Marshal Service." The officer's face changed. He said nothing and quickly walked out of the room. Daniel waited. The ticking clock grew louder. His hands were still cuffed, but his posture stayed strong. After a few minutes, footsteps echoed in the hallway. The door opened again. This time, a senior officer entered with a serious look on his face. His name badge read Lieutenant Samuel Green. "Mr. Brooks," Green said slowly, "we need to verify something." "You should," Daniel replied. Lieutenant Green stepped outside and made a phone call. Daniel could hear low voices through the door. The mood in the station began to shift. Officers moved faster. Whispers filled the hallway. Soon the door opened again. Two men in dark suits stepped inside. They carried themselves with confidence. One of them pulled out a badge and held it up. "Daniel Brooks, you're coming with us." Lieutenant Green looked uneasy. "Sir, we didn't know." Daniel stood up as his cuffs were removed. He rubbed his wrists slowly. "You knew enough to arrest me," Daniel said calmly. Across the room, Officer Ryan Holt stood frozen. His face was pale. Sweat rolled down his temple. He couldn't meet Daniel's eyes. One of the men in the suit spoke clearly. "This arrest was unlawful. The stop was unjustified. This matter will be investigated immediately." The room was silent. Daniel collected his belongings. He slid his phone into his pocket and took a deep breath. Every eye followed him as he walked toward the exit. As Daniel stepped outside, the sun still shined bright. Cars passed by. Life continued, but something had changed. This was no longer just a traffic stop. The police station felt different after Daniel walked out of the holding area. The air was heavy. Officers whispered to each other. Phones rang more often. Papers were moved quickly from one desk to another. Everyone now knew this was not a normal arrest. Daniel stood near the front desk with the two men in dark suits from the U.S. Marshal Service. They spoke quietly with Lieutenant Samuel Green, while Officer Ryan Holt stood several steps away. Holt's face was tight, his jaw locked. He kept adjusting his belt like it was suddenly too heavy. Lieutenant Green cleared his throat. "Mr. Brooks, I want to apologize for what happened today." Daniel looked at him calmly. "This should never have happened," he replied. One of the marshals spoke firmly. "We'll need all body camera footage, dash camera footage, and reports from every officer involved." Green nodded quickly. "Of course." Officer Holt finally spoke. "I was just doing my job," he said, his voice low. Daniel turned slowly to face him.
"No," he said, "you weren't." Silence filled the room again. The marshals requested a private room. Inside, Daniel explained everything from the moment the lights came on behind him. He repeated the words that were said to him. Every sentence was written down. Every detail mattered. "You don't deserve this car." Those words hit the room hard. Outside the room, officers reviewed Holt's body camera footage. The video showed Holt staring at the Rolls-Royce before even speaking to Daniel. It showed his tone. It showed the moment he said Daniel didn't deserve the car. There was no missing context, no confusion. The evidence spoke clearly. By the end of the day, Officer Holt was placed on immediate suspension. His badge and service weapon were taken. He signed paperwork with shaking hands. He avoided eye contact as he left the station through a side door. Daniel watched silently. News of the incident spread fast. A short video from a witness hit social media. The clip showed Daniel in handcuffs beside his luxury car. People reacted with anger. Others shared their own stories. The city could not ignore it. 2 weeks later, Daniel sat in a quiet office with his attorney. Papers were spread across the desk. "This case is strong, very strong," the lawyer said. Daniel nodded. "I don't want silence, I want accountability." The lawsuit was filed. The city tried to settle early. They offered money. They asked for privacy. Daniel said no. "I was humiliated in public," he said. "This needs to be seen." The case went forward. In court, the footage was played. The officer's words were heard again. Witnesses testified. Experts explained racial profiling in simple terms. The jury listened closely. Officer Holt sat stiff in his chair, his uniform gone, replaced by a plain suit. When the verdict came, the courtroom was silent. The judge spoke clearly. Wrongful arrest, unlawful stop, racial profiling. The city was ordered to pay $4.5 million. Daniel closed his eyes for a brief moment. Justice had spoken. The day after the court decision, the city felt tense. News stations replayed the story again and again. The words wrongful arrest and racial profiling filled every screen. People talked about it at bus stops, in offices, and inside homes. Everyone had an opinion. Officer Ryan Holt woke up early that morning in his small apartment. His uniform no longer hung neatly by the door. His badge was gone. His phone buzzed non-stop with messages he didn't want to read. He turned the phone face down and stared at the ceiling. His career was over. At the police department, Holt was officially fired. The decision came quickly. There was no long meeting, no second chance. He was handed a letter, asked to turn in his remaining equipment, and escorted out of the building he once walked into with pride. Inside the department, training sessions were announced. New rules were posted on walls. Body camera reviews became stricter. The city wanted to show change, but for many people, the damage was already done. Daniel Brooks stayed quiet during all of this. He didn't celebrate, he didn't give long speeches. He focused on his work and his family. The money from the lawsuit was placed in a trust. Daniel made it clear this was never about getting rich. It was about setting things right. He used part of the settlement to fund legal help for people who could not afford lawyers. He supported programs that taught young kids about their rights. He visited schools and spoke in simple words about staying calm and knowing your value. One afternoon, Daniel received a letter from the city. It was a formal apology. It used careful words. Daniel read it once, folded it, and placed it in a drawer. Words were not enough, but they mattered. Months passed. The street where Daniel was stopped looked the same as before. Cars passed, people walked, life moved on. But Daniel never forgot that day. It reminded him how quickly respect could disappear. One afternoon, Daniel drove his black Rolls-Royce Cullinan down that same road. The sun was bright. Traffic moved smoothly. This time, no lights flashed behind him.
Daniel felt calm. Back at the police department, Officer Holt's name faded from the wall of officers. New recruits took his place. His actions were now used as an example of what not to do. Justice had consequences. And for the first time in a long time, the system had worked the way it was supposed to. The morning sun shined through the window as Daniel Brooks stood in his kitchen, holding a cup of coffee. The house was quiet. The noise from the city outside felt distant. Life had slowed down again, and for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt truly at peace. The events of that day still lived in his mind: the flashing lights, the officer's words, the cold sound of the handcuffs locking around his wrists. Those moments could not be erased, but they no longer controlled him. Daniel stepped into his black Rolls-Royce Cullinan and drove through the city. People walked on sidewalks. Traffic lights changed from red to green. Everything felt normal. That normal feeling meant something now. At a stoplight, Daniel looked around. No fear, no anger, just calm. News reports continued to talk about the case. People shared the story online. Many thanked Daniel for standing up. Some said the case helped them feel seen. Others said it gave them courage. Daniel never chased attention. He focused on his work as a U.S. Marshal. Every day he wore his badge with pride, not because of power, but because of responsibility. He remembered why he joined in the first place: to protect, to serve, to make things fair. One afternoon, Daniel was invited to speak at a small community event. Parents and children filled the room. He spoke in simple words so everyone could understand. "Know your worth," he said. "Stay calm, and don't be afraid to stand up for the truth." The room stayed silent. The message landed. Across the city, Officer Ryan Holt lived quietly. No badge, no authority, just consequences. His story was now a lesson written into policy books and training rooms. The city continued to make changes. Body cameras were reviewed more closely. Officers received better training. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Daniel knew justice didn't always come fast, and sometimes it didn't come at all, but this time it did. One evening, Daniel parked his car and looked up at the sky. He thought about how one moment could change everything, how silence could protect wrong, and how speaking up could bring change. He took a deep breath and smiled. He was free. Not just free from handcuffs, but free from doubt. And as Daniel Brooks walked forward, head high, he knew one thing for sure: justice had spoken, and it had listened.